and time for the Murray City Municipal Council Budget and Finance Committee for fiscal year 2020-2021. This is Friday, May 15th, 2020. The Murray City Municipal Council, let's see, I don't have to say that, do I? Well, I guess, will hold its Budget and Finance Committee meeting electronically in accordance with Executive Order 2020-5, suspending the enforcement of provision of Utah Code 52-4-202 and 52-4-207 due to infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus issued by Governor Herbert on March 18th, 2020, and Murray City Council Resolution number R20-13 adopted on March 17th, 2020. The public may view the meeting via the live stream at www.murraycitylive.com or www.facebook.com Murray City, Utah. No physical meeting location will be available. All council members are present. This is our third meeting. It's the reconciliation meeting, and I would like to welcome everyone who has joined us and just say that ultimately, our job as a council is to protect and ensure the well-being of our citizens and provide services while dealing this year with the reality of a pandemic and also the economic repercussions that are yet to be known. So anyway, this has been a crazy budget year, and hopefully this will be our last meeting. We'll reconcile all the information we've received, and I so appreciate the council and all the department directors and Jan Lopez, and let's get started. So first of all, we have our discussion items, and the first one is to report on revised estimate fiscal year 2019 and 2020 general fund ending fund balance and use of reserves. Brenda Moore. And Brenda is our department head. And there's her head.
Yeah, there's my head. Okay. Now that I got my mute off, I'm going to share my screen. That one. So you should be able to see the, I hope, the original mayor's tentative budget spreadsheet in front of you. Okay. So I'm just going to start with, in just a reminder, in fiscal 19, which is the first year that shows up on here, with no crisis going on, just normal operations, the department saved 13% of their operating budgets, or $1.3 million. And some of you and the citizens may say, well, that means the budget was set too high. And how we set the budget, this is just a reminder for most of you, but I'm just going to go through it really quick in case someone's watching, and just to remind people, how we set the budget is I set the revenue, and then we do our best to get the expenses down to where the revenue or up to, down to where the revenue has been set. And I always budget revenue conservatively. I want, at the end of the year, for us to have received more revenue than what I budgeted. That's the goal. Within reason, we need to increase our revenue budgets on a normal year. And the other, so the department heads are usually, most years, told to leave their budgets flat. And then we only budget an increase for those items which need an increase due to contracts, et cetera. The reason they don't spend it is because everyone knows that at the end of the year, whatever they don't spend either goes to build the city's reserves again or gets rolled into capital projects for equipment, cars, roads, whatever they decide, whatever is on the capital improvements list. So that's why they save money. And that's just a reminder of how the whole thing works. One of the consequences of the mayor's philosophy of continuous improvement is most departments or all departments are continually looking for ways to provide better services, hopefully at a lower cost, or ways to save money and keep the same service. It's just ingrained into everybody's brain. So we'll go to the spreadsheet now. So the first part of the spreadsheet is as the budget was presented, and it was presented with a 12.1% final percent of revenue for the reserves. And the estimated actual was sitting at 20.2. And I told you this is probably the worst case scenario. So we went through and with what the department had said that they could save or were going to save. And then I went through the payroll and figured out what payroll numbers they were going to save. And it looks like a good estimate is that we will actually save, in addition to what my worst case, $2.3 million. So that will bring our beginning reserves up to 24.7%. It's almost at the top of what the state will allow. Or we will probably only use 954,000 of our reserves to get through this instant economic downturn. So hopefully those numbers are good. I did do a little extra calculation this morning because it's possible that the Park Center will be opening and the pool may be opening at the first part of June. And so I re-looked at this number based on getting some more part-time wages in there. And I had already decreased my savings for the payroll by 150,000, just thinking that maybe something would open up or whatever. So I'm pretty confident, even with those facilities opening, that we're going to be right around that $2.3 million. So I think that's a pretty good number. So let me get my notes. Don't want to miss anything. Okay. And so then the other thing I did was I summarized the various tabs. I summarized the 2020 savings, and that's where I got those numbers. I have a summary of the adjustments. And on this particular tab, the adjusted for department proposals and possible growth in property tax, I put the current budget as the mayor presented it did not have any growth from property tax. We will not know what this number is until the day we pass, hopefully the day we pass the budget. It's just when the certified tax rates get done. So I didn't budget for any property tax growth. Last year there was $92,000. I know there were some Ivory homes that are now being lived in. I'm not sure about the Murray Crossing apartments. I'm not sure when the Granton Square, whatever, when that office building is coming online. So I budgeted a little less this year, estimate in this particular scenario. Plus I took all of the adjustments that we had talked about, put it in here, and that brought our ending fund balance percentage to 17.9. So, so that looks much better. I would love it to stay at 25, but it's not going to happen. The city of Salt Lake was very proud, the mayor, that her budget was going to bring Salt Lake City's up to 15%. So depending on your city, we've been quite lucky to be running at the full 25%. A lot of cities run below that. So I think what I want to do now is go through each of these tabs, see if there's any adjustments, talk about them so that we know when you go to make decisions, what we're talking about and whether I need to remove anything or add anything. And this is a dynamic spreadsheet. So if we take something out, we can see what happens or add something. So the first list was the adjustments. And I know that somebody had said something about wanting to possibly leave the DARE program in and the FIRE's cancer and mental health program. So I just need to know from council if we want to leave them in or leave them in as in leave them in the budget and remove them from this list.
I think we want to leave the cancer and the mental health program. We want to fund that. If that's the understanding, is that what the rest of the council, what do you think?
Yes, I would like to keep that in. It's to my understanding that the DARE program was being kept because the schools are not in session and we're not sure how they're going, when, and if they will.
Right. I think that is true. And this is supplies for the DARE program. So this is the fun t-shirts and all that stuff. The thing is, if you left it in the budget and they didn't have school in the fall, which most parents would hate completely, then they just wouldn't spend it on that stuff. But if you want to leave it in or take it out, it's up to you. I'm just a messenger.
Brenda, if I could also clarify that, this will not eliminate the DARE program. The DARE program will still have, you'll just reduction of supplies as Brenda mentioned. So if you think you're going to be voting to eliminate the DARE program, that's not the case.
Thank you. I want to leave that 5,000 in as well for the fire department for those cancer tests and mental health.
Okay.
I agree with that also.
I'm okay with taking the 1,300 from the DARE program. I think they'll still be fine.
Okay. So the other thing. Okay, so the other thing that I was thinking about is the seasonal part-time in streets. Sometimes, and I know this has happened in the past, sometimes the public services will hire a part-time person instead of a full-time person and see how they do, and then they'll hire them as a full-time person when they have an opening. And the other thing I'm kind of concerned about on this one is if construction gets busy in the summer, they might, I would like them to have the opportunity to hire a part-time person to prevent full-time overtime. So I don't know if that would happen. So that was just my concern with pulling out their seasonal part-time wages.
So that was pulling out all of this.
Let me double check. That's public services streets.
Am I showing up? I can't even see myself.
Yeah, I
No,
can't see
you are a ghost.
I am a ghost. I don't know why.
That's
Oh, well,
pulling
as
out
long as
about
you're here.
half. So he'll still have 23. So that one's probably okay to leave in there.
Okay.
He'll still have about $25,000 worth of part-time wages. And if
I'm
you
good with
didn't
that.
notice, I added the Social Security that goes along with it. Just because. Anything else on the list anybody had any concerns about?
Yeah, there's one more I do if I can, Diane. I would like to look at leaving the SWAT supplies in for the police department. I would really hate when we call SWAT, it's for the worst of the worst situations. And I would really hate for them to be one thing short of anything they need. I think that's about $8,000.
Yeah, that's about $8,000. I'd almost say, do I have a second on that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, and Craig was the one who thought that they'd be okay without it, right?
Well, he was going
Yeah.
through trying to get his 4%, but
My question
I
was,
would still like, yeah, I'd still like to leave it there in case they need it. If not, they can turn it back at the end of next year, but I'd really hate for them to come up short.
Brenda, how much was their 4%? I feel like they went over 4% in their budget, or was it?
Their 4%, their budget is.
Did they have more than their 4%? Because when we were going through stuff, I just thought it was a little bit more.
Well, their budget,
It was 4.3%.
yeah, 4.3. So that'd probably bring them down to maybe a little under 4.
Okay, then yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next tab we had, any others before I move on?
Are there any others? I don't,
I'd like to add back in the Boys and Girls Club.
Kat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you hear me?
Yes, the Boys and Girls Club. I'm trying to find it. Oh, it's up at the
It's-
top.
Non-departmental $5,000.
Okay.
I'm going to remove, since I'm not showing Jan, I'm just going to remove that like this, just so you know. So you know I'm still here, but it's showing that I'm not there and I don't want to have that showing. So, okay. Thank you.
Looks much better, buddy.
I didn't ask you.
So does
I know,
anybody else
I
have
would.
any thoughts on the Boys and Girls Club? I totally understand why Kat would want to leave that in.
How much is it? I'm trying to look
It's
at it.
$5,000. Do you want me to make this a little bigger?
Yeah, for me. Sorry. For me. Sorry.
Kat,
Okay, let me see if I can. There we go. It's $5,000. We usually give them $100,000. I did find
Go
a
ahead.
couple more dollars in non-departmental. It's up to you.
When you say a
I-
couple,
Yeah, what?
A couple more dollars in non-departmental.
Does that mean 100,000?
No, it means 30. It's at the bottom
30,000.
of your list. I think our unemployment could probably be reduced because now I'm getting a feel of what we're going to have to pay. And then under the CARES Act, we're only paying half of our normal unemployment assessment that we would get charged. So I'm pretty comfortable lowering it a little bit. And the miscellaneous 10,000, I can take that off. And if our property tax comes in above 80, I can just add 10,000 back in with the property tax. So we need
I
a
would-
little bit of miscellaneous just to cover the miscellaneous emergencies.
I would feel comfortable if we gave even the youth chamber and the Chamber of Commerce their amounts back if we do have a larger amount available. So the 2,200 and 1,000.
Okay.
Say those amount again, Rosalba. I can't see them, so I'm just hearing you.
Okay, so the non-departmental, sorry, The youth chamber, we were removing 2,200 and the chamber of commerce 1,000. And if there's 30,000 available in that area, then I think we could give the money back. I think Utah League and Cities were fine.
Yeah, because that's what they bill us anyway.
Right. So, but I would hate for the nonprofits that are already struggling to continue to struggle.
Yeah, I agree. I've
Yeah.
got that I want to throw in before we go, and that's utilities for parks. It's a big one. It's 29 grand, but that's will be what waters the lawns. And if we let the parks go, it will probably be very expensive to bring it back.
So this is the thing about the utilities accounts that you can have some confidence in. All of that
Okay,
just
thank you.
runs automatic through the billing systems. I mean, they watch them, they get a copy of the bills, and they're very careful with it. But if they don't spend it, it's not like they can put anything else in there. It's going to be either water or power or nothing. So then it would just rotate back into reserves if it doesn't get spent.
So if we take that $29,000 out of utilities for parks, there's still money for watering the lawns and making sure, or they can come back, because I don't want the parks to suffer if we can help it, because it'll cost more to bring them back next year or the year after than will to keep them up.
The total amount of that budget was $425,000. So they dropped it, the 29. So they still have 390,000 approximately. I'm not going to get my calculator out. So they could, and last year it was a rainy June, and so they only spent 300,000 in 2019. This year it's been a dry April, so they probably started watering a little earlier, but they could possibly watch it, and you could go with the caveat, we could leave the cut in here, and if come next May when I'm doing my final budget, if they're going to run out, I can throw some money in there, or we could just not pull it out.
Let's do that. If we think we can get through, if there is a problem, then let's leave it open that they can come back. We don't, we just want to maintain, or I do anyway, I want to maintain the parks as best we can through this.
Okay. I think if we'll just go with the caveat that if they really need it, they will pay attention. They're always careful with their water budget.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, they are. Okay, thank you.
Kind of
Anything
seems
else?
we're moving everything back in.
Hold on, I'm gonna
No,
sign
we're
in
leaving
and
it
come back
there.
in real quick. Sorry, just let me say something real quick. I'm gonna sign in and come back because I'm not showing. I think it'll fix it if I sign off, so I'll be right back.
Okay. No, we're leaving it there as a cut, and then we'll just hope that they can make it through, and then it's a rainy May and June. Or actually, it would have to, be May and June next year, maybe a rainy August, who knows? Anything else? Anybody have any questions while we're waiting for Brett?
I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay.
Quick question, how much did IT do more than 4% as well?
Oh yeah, IT did a ton more than 4% because, I mean, they did 4% in addition to the stopping the computer replacement program for 1 year, which is, I think most of our computers are on a 5-year rotation. It just means we use a little older technology for a little longer. It's fine. As far
I
as
just
I'm
wanted to
concerned.
add in that Brett is here now.
Okay, we got Brett. Okay. So I think we're okay with the adjustments. It brought the effect down to 250,000 on this particular sheet, and then I also have those other two adjustments on here. So the travel, I came up with a GL effect or general fund effect at 57,000. Was there anybody who wanted to add anything back in, or just it was okay as it appears, or take anything away?
Hold on, give me a second.
Let me make it a little bigger for you. There you go.
Were we okay with the police department's budget there of how much they cut? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think so. Craig said he was fine with, he was very careful about making the cuts. So I pretty much trust him to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
So just real quick. So we added back in, we wanted to add back in the 5,000, and then Rosalba, you had mentioned for the, I'm sorry, because I signed back off and had signed in. So back on for, help me out, chamber and youth chamber.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like travel is good the way it appears. I summarized all of the overtime cuts and came up with the amount when you put in, I put them into my personnel spreadsheet and summarized them, came up with the amounts that were taxes and retirement so that I could get a full effect of cutting the overtime. And it came up to $69,000. We left in some of parks, some of cemetery, the small ones. Anybody have any questions? Want me to change this sheet in any way?
The only thing I can say is how much we appreciate everybody going through that. I think we need to be flexible with this. We can leave the cuts in, but we need to be flexible, because if we have men and women out snow plowing on Christmas Eve, or out in the rain restoring power, or any, plowing snow, restoring power, whatever, fixing water lines, they need to be compensated. So if the overtime budget runs out, I think we ought to make it clear that the department heads need to come to us, and we'll see what we can find to help them.
Okay. And just so if you're curious, GIS, they have a $4,000 overtime budget. Two of those guys actually plow streets in the winter. So that's where that budget comes from. It's not from their computing. It's from, they used to be streets guys, and they still plow streets. So we get all hands on deck when there's snow removal to be done. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and I realize that, and I like that, just like Dale said. I mean, we want that. Our streets are some of the first cleared off, so we like it.
You can certainly tell when I'm driving to work, when I leave a Murray plowed street and go to State Street, which is a state plowed street, you know the total difference. You can see it. So, okay, so overtime is good. We'll just go back to the summary sheet. And that should have recalculated, and it's still sitting at 17.9. So we didn't really, actually, it would be this one. Add the 30,000 back in. Let me pull that one. Yeah, it's still at 17.9. So the small little changes you made didn't really bother it much. So, okay. So that was item B.
Did we
Item
take it to
C-
19? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
What? Yeah, we're still at 19.1,
19.1. I thought we were 17.9, but we were at 19.
or we're at 17.9. Sorry about that.
Okay, gotcha. Thank
17.9 after those.
Gotcha.
The other
Thank
one's
you.
one of my scenarios.
Kat
Okay.
and Diane, what was our goal to be at?
Well, to be as high as we can, I would like us to be at 20%. But, you know, I mean, that would make us strong. Because usually in past, we've been at 24 and 25, which is as high as we can go, as Brenda has told us. But we just don't know what's coming. So, you know, as much as we can have in reserves, it's going to be helpful down the road. So I'd like
Yeah.
us to be as possible.
Well, we're at 17.9 now. That's a little low for your goal of 20. So the other item that we can do is, if you want to keep your reserve at the 20, is not send all of the 0.2 sales tax to the CIP fund. Now, the issue with that, or what that creates, is in 2023's budget, when we finally know what this actual number is rolling into capital projects, we would have, if everything turned out perfectly, we would have $500,000 less in CIP to use for whatever equipment. But I've been talking to
Question.
yes.
Just real quick. So the CIP, we could, if we were concerned with our reserves, say in a few months, 6 months down the road, we can take out of the CIP
That is correct.
anytime. And so if we need that to be there, I mean, I say leave it there in the CIP. I mean, that's just my own opinion. And then if we happen to need it, we take it out.
Which is fine if you want your goal to be 17% for your budgeted reserve. But if you want your budgeted reserve to be 20, then not the easiest, but the way with the least amount of impact for employees and for operations is to just adjust this number.
Well, I'm good with that
We
too. If that's
actually
what we
could
want
be
to do.
different depending on what sales tax does, but
Right. We just don't know.
Right.
So-
That's why I made my statement about that, because we don't know about sales tax. But if, do you want to move it over now?
well, and it's not physically moving it. This is just
I know.
adjusting the budget. So
Right.
it would be,
Right.
we're going to keep a higher portion in the general fund for this particular budget year. It's a policy decision.
Right.
And we have other issues to go through. I mean, we have other lists to go through. We're not finished, so we can just consider
So
that.
that is one thing. And
Yeah,
then,
we can come
that's
back
one-
to that.
right,
I
that's
think-
one possible thing. And then
Uh,
I had one more
good on-
thing. I have one more item that's a way to save money, not this year, but in future years. If you have your books, if you want to look at the debt service schedule that's on page 66, behind the debt service tab,
Okay.
there is we have one little bond out there that's got 3 more years. It's fully callable. We can pay this off at any time. Payment is due on April 1st for the principal. So we just barely paid a principal payment. If we paid the 3 principal payments, so we're in year 2021. So I've already budgeted the $140,000 payment plus the interest. So I've already budgeted $158,000 for this. If we were to pay the $295,000, and yes, it would come out of reserves, I totally get this, we would save $33,000 or somewhere between $33,000 and $35,000, especially if I do it July 1 or July 2 or in July.
Save that in interest.
Yes, we would save those 3 interest payments minus 1/4 of the 18,000.
But then we'd have to take the reserves down by 295,000, right?
Correct. But this is what I'm saying is next year, we're going to have to make the $145,000 payment anyway. And the next year, we're going to have to make the $150,000 payment anyway. So if we drop the reserve in the next 2 years, I don't have to budget that. And we have saved $30,000 in interest over the course of the next 2 years. I totally get it. It's hard to say, well, let's use reserves now.
Right. That's
But
because
we're going to have to do it anyway. We're going to have to pay them anyway. So that's just an idea that would save some money.
but
And
it would
since it's allowable,
still add to,
yeah, it would drop the reserve down.
yeah.
Well, it's exactly like if I had my own budget and I want to save $30,000. If I don't want to save $30,000, I'm not concerned about $30,000 over 3 years. I mean, personally, I would be concerned about $30,000 if I have the money to pay off a loan. And so that's,
If you have to commit $295,000 now,
right.
that we don't have, and we don't know if we'll have it. I mean, if we
Yeah,
have it,
you have it. You just don't want to
We
go
have
below
it.
a certain
You just don't
amount.
want to spend it.
right. That's
And-
true.
And yeah, you have it. You just don't want to spend it. And
That's what I'm trying to make, because we have it. We just don't want to spend it, and we'll lose $30,000 over that, which is our call.
Right.
that's your call. And just so you know, I'm expecting that we'll probably be earning 0.5% on this money as it sits in the bank or the PTIF or invested. And the interest rate is 4.4%. So it's up to you guys. We'll come back to it, think on it. I can show you what it would do to the reserves if we're at that 19.1. If
Would that
I,
interest rate go lower than 4%, or is that something that we're
nope,
talking?
that's it. The interest rate on these bonds are, the coupon rate that we're at right now is 4.4%. So if we did do that, 295, it would drop our reserves down 1 point. The 18.4 from 19.1. Not quite a point, but that's close enough. So think on it.
Yeah, we can
You got
consider.
decisions to make.
Are we at 19.1 in reserves or 17.9?
Well, it depends on what we do with that 500,000. If we don't mess with the transfer, we would be at 17.2.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. So those are my other possible budget revisions. The next thing that was on your list was that streets, $100,000 in professional services. And I think you all got the memo from Danny about it. Did you have any questions? Are you considering removing it from the budget? Did it just answer your things that it's that road survey and the software to run it?
Brenda, I'm just wondering if it's something necessary.
Anytime you have software that is run and only one person can manage it, it is really necessary to get yourself off that software.
But this year, I mean, it's
Yes, because
$100.
that person, you never know. I've had experience with this with the city. You never know what may happen to that person on any given day. We're dealing with COVID-19. Think about it.
So Diane, can I make a comment about that?
Yes, of course.
So just to be clear, we're talking about the pavement management plan and the sidewalk management plan, Brenda?
Yes, in the software, yes.
Yeah, so so the city in the past has received lawsuits from individuals who have either tripped on sidewalks or have had accidents from road maintenance issues. And in almost all of those cases, we've been able to show that we have a plan to repair all of these issues. That's what the pavement management plan does, and that's what the sidewalk maintenance plan does. And so to me, it's a risk management tool that the attorney's office can use in defending the city when we have claims against those kinds of incidents.
And so we need it this year. We
Can I
can't-
ask a question?
Yes, of course, Kat.
Doug, do you know if there's a way that phasing implementation, or is it a package deal, 100,000, or is it you can do part of it and then another part? Do you know?
Yeah, so you can do one or the other or both, but you need to do the whole. You should update the plan so that it shows all of the sidewalks or shows all of the roads, but you don't have to do necessarily both, or you don't have to do either. There's no statutory requirement that you have to do these. It's just a tool showing that the city has a plan, and that, so for example, the Americans with Disabilities Act says that you have to constantly be making improvements to your ramps and so on and so forth. And so if you don't show that you have a plan and that you're making improvements, and GL can talk more about this. I know he's on this Zoom meeting as well. If you can't show that you're making progress, then you can, in a court of law, and I'll let GL speak to this, you can be penalized greater than if you can show that you're making progress and you have a plan.
Okay, GL?
Yeah,
Do
thank
you want
you.
to speak to that?
Yeah. Let me just briefly go back to the sidewalk.
Do we currently have a plan?
What's that?
Do we currently have a plan?
We're talking about the sidewalks?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we currently have a plan, but it was done, oh gosh, it was done probably over 10 years ago. And so that's why they're wanting to update it now. It's just really, we've just completed all the work in the plan, and we don't have a plan going forward.
The significance of having a plan is when there is a problem with the sidewalk and we get a call, so we are notified that there's a problem, we're required to fix that problem. However, the courts and recognize that we may not have the money to fix everything all at once. And so they've said if you have a plan in place and you follow the plan, that's good enough. So that if we get a call and we have a raised sidewalk or something like that, and it's on the plan, we don't have to run right out then and fix it at that point. We can work our plan, but the plan does need to be current so that we're on top of all these problems that we do have.
So go ahead, Diane, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to get more information. So we currently have a plan. Do we need to have a new plan this year, or could we wait till next year? And, hopefully then we'd be in a better place at that time. Does
So
that make sense?
It does make sense. From my perspective, Diane, I defer to the experts on this here, the engineers and public works. And if they think we need an updated plan, then I would defer to that.
Yeah, if I might, if I understand this correctly, this is for new software. And there again, this is an enterprise fund, so this money won't come back to the general fund anyway. But this is for software, a software update to update the plan and also make it accessible to, it sounds to me like maybe we only have one person that knows how to run the old, possibly outdated software. So this is to update that, make it more user-friendly and develop a new plan, correct?
Yeah, it's partially that, but it's the way that they gather the data to go into the software is that they actually drive around like Google does. They drive around the city and document all of the condition of all the roads and all the sidewalks. So we have these photographic images, if you will, that get uploaded into the software. And then the software helps the city, helps our staff prioritize the projects because they give a score. What they do is they give a score to a road, they give a score to a sidewalk. And so every year when you allocate money, let's say you're allocating $300,000 for sidewalks, that score is used through this software program to help the staff know how to spend that $300,000 or what roads to fix, which roads are in the poorest condition and which ones needs to be fixed.
I may have been mistaken. Is this or isn't this an enterprise fund?
It is not, it's the
I
general
don't think
fund.
it is. Yeah.
Okay, I was mistaken on that. So
No, it would come out of the general fund. Are there any more comments on this? On the
Yeah,
$100,000?
Anybody else before? Sorry, I don't want to, is that okay if I come in?
No, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, it's just a question. GL, did you say, or Doug, or somebody say something that that this is a guideline that we use, and if we don't have, I understand, and I'm concerned what Dale said too about the one person only knowing the old system, but is it also a guideline to where if we don't have that and say somebody needs to have a sidewalk fix and we don't have this, and then we don't fix that, then we're held more liable because we don't have this program?
It is more difficult than cities that actually have that.
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
It is more difficult to defend the city if we don't have that.
Okay, that's what I got from you, GL, and I want to make sure I was right.
But we currently have a plan. It's just an old plan, correct?
That's correct. But the software is no longer supported for the old plan. So that's why they're proposing that we get an updated software package that will actually work better than what we currently have.
Okay.
And who regulates this? Is this the state or legal? I mean, where is it regulated by?
So as far as the sidewalk issues, a trip and fall, that's just a court issue, right? I mean, it's a
Civil
type of thing that's gone over many years. And so we know from experience that we need to be on top of this because we do have these trip and fall cases throughout the year. And going back to Diane's question about whether we have an old plan, clearly things can change over 10 years, over a decade. And so from our perspective, and speaking from the attorney's office, the better information we have, the better we can defend the city on these types of cases.
So I guess I need to poll the council and find out what everybody thinks, if we should, fund that or wait until next year and see what we've got then. Okay, can I do that, Jan? Is that appropriate in this setting? All right, Brett?
Yes, I think with the information that GL has given us with the risk factor, and then also what Doug said about it being the only one person knows the old one, I absolutely say yes.
Kat?
Hearing it possible to do like just the sidewalks and then the other one. I'd love it if we could do half of it this year, half of it next year.
Is
I'm
it possible
thinking-
to do that?
Danny gave me a quote on that. It was, he thought it would be like 45,000, 55,000. And part of what I understood from Danny, and I may be wrong, was that because so many cities are pulling out of this kind of thing, we're getting a slight discount. So, and we really need it. So, but we can split it. We're not sure the exact split would be. And I'm not sure how much would be roads and how much would be, I'd have to double check with Danny or someone in streets to determine which one is sidewalks and which one is roads. I think it was 55-45 or something like that.
Brenda, I can answer that for you. It's 45,000 for the streets, 55,000 for the sidewalks.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. All right, Kat, is that still half and half?
Yeah, that would be my preference, so that we're moving forward on it, but more measured.
Kat, let me ask, or not Kat, well, any of you, but so does that mean, and I'm okay with that too, does that mean that if, say we did 55,000, then we at least get the sidewalk? Because I'm wondering, and I don't know if this is true because I don't know, but I'm wondering if the sidewalks are more pertinent, for trips and that kind of stuff. And so, or am I thinking correct with something like that, or am I off?
To answer that, it's Danny's preference to do the road first. He believes that the road is critical.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I'll turn my mic back. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Mayor, would you repeat that? I couldn't hear you either.
Sure. According to Danny, his preference would be to do the roads. He believes the roads would be more critical first.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll put that on the table, full, partial, or no. Dale, what is your vote?
Well, I think I'll vote for full simply because of going with the experts. If they feel they need it, they need the update, we may as well get it done and move forward with it.
Rosalba?
Well, now I don't know. After the mayor's statement of he can just have roads, I'm okay with just roads. So to be very conservative on this, but yes, I would agree with Kat to go with partial. I think it's worth finding out how much we would save, but I don't know if that would make a difference if we did partial or full. So it would be worth looking at.
Okay, it would be the money. We would be saving $45,000. So, I mean, that's kind of the bottom line, what we're trying to do here. Brett, are you still yes?
Yeah, let me just ask one more thing. Yes, but correct me if I'm wrong on this. So if the person that is over this, kind of like we had the situation, Diane, with our, I can't remember the system, but it was the IT Rob was saying the person that was over it, it was back in the day of Justin. But if they couldn't get that program, the new system in, that the one person that knew it, if they were sick, then we'd be in big trouble. Is that what we're saying on this? That if only one person knows the old system, and if we don't get this new system, that we have an entire year go by, if someone is sick or whatever, that we'll have a hard time running the new system? Unless that's the mayor or Doug that.
Brett, no, I don't believe that is the concern. I don't think you need to worry about that issue.
Okay.
So are you still yes or partial?
Yeah, I'll go with what Danny says. I'll support Danny on the whole thing.
Okay, and I say partial. So that's Kat, Rosalba, and Diane say partial. Dale and Brett say yes. So I guess partials win.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank- Okay, so then would that be 55 or 45? Brenda?
I believe the mayor said Danny wanted to do the streets first, so it would be 45.
Okay, great. Okay. Have we finished with C? Brenda, are there other possible budget revisions that you have?
No,
Okay, so that's. All right, now we are to, let's see, street divisions, we already did that. Mayor's office car allowance. Okay, and as I looked into that, all department heads earn $350 per month for car expenses. Is that accurate?
every department head earns $4,200. The mayor and the CAO get $6,600 a year. This was all done as part of the compensation study when we were putting together the budget in fiscal year 2019. Mike Terry, who was the HR director at the time, went through and did a comparison and comp study on what people's car allowances were in the various cities throughout the valley and the Wasatch Front, and then moved. We had at that point we had some directors that were at $1,000, some that were at $500, some they were all over the board. So they made them all uniform and then adjusted the mayor and the CAO up to $6,600.
Okay.
Brenda, Diane, can I make a comment on that? I guess it's a correction. I think your figure's off. I know that the mayor's car allowance is $6,000 a year. It's $500 a month.
Yeah, 6,000. Sorry. 40. It's 42 and 6,000. 4,200 for all the department heads and 6,000, and that includes the council director. So
Any way we can see that study, and how far back does that study go?
it was 2019.
Just for that year?
Well, that's when he polled all of the various cities. Was in 2019 or 18. It was probably December, January of 2018 and 19.
So is there a way we can get a copy of that just to kind of review it? To see, I would like to see what other mayors definitely get, and then just
It
feel comfortable
probably
with
would
that.
make sense to get it get a new one, because that is 2 years old and who knows what they have done. But I can send you the one that all I have is a spreadsheet. I haven't been able to. Both the finance director and Mike Terry are gone, and I haven't been able to find any of their discussions or any other things, but just a list of what he said. But I can get that to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm not- Rosalba, that same studies where we came up with a STEP program. We had an extensive study of surrounding cities.
I'm not sure that we ever got that study though. Did we, Jan?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Well,
we never got a copy of the study.
okay. I didn't think we had. Anyway, getting back to my concerns about that, I just think it's excessive, and my recommendation would be that all department heads get $350, and that includes the mayor, Doug, and Jennifer. that would be about 12,600, and with a possible savings of 3,900. And then what I had thought we could do was put the 3,900 savings towards the Boys and Girls Club that had been reduced. I know, Kat, you're looking at me like that does, I know you had already wanted to add it in before, but I thought this would be a good place because the mayor had reduced that in his budget. So I thought we could just take it from there and put it into the Boys and Girls Club. Does that make sense? Anyone opposed to that?
I think it definitely helps with the percentage go up.
No, it won't help at all. But
3,900. I mean, it helps some, but
Well, I have a question. Do we correct me, Diane? And you know, I'm not against what we've talked about. Help me out how this works, Diane. Where if we suggest that, does the mayor have to follow that, or does he? And I'm just asking, or can he help me? Jan, I can see you nod, but I can't hear you.
Well, you're the budget authority, Brad.
I know that. Are we the ones that say, and help me out? This is my own discussion about could he take it somewhere else?
Yes,
And
we can.
Not
move
us.
if we want to.
Yeah, I know funding, but okay, let me ask Jan. Jan, when we take that and we suggest that does that mean that the administration has to go with that, or can they take money from somewhere else and say, well, we're still going to do that amount?
I don't believe that they can do that if you've
That's all right.
specifically lowered a certain amount.
Okay, that was my question.
The way that that I understand it is, I have the authority within like a department. If their repairs and maintenance are too low and their supplies are too high, I can shift the budget between those line items. I can't let it leave the department, but I can shift it between line items. I am assuming that for the salaries and wages, you can shift it between line items. I look at the bottom line and make sure it stays in line. I do not know for sure. I just want to make sure you're clear if he could pull it from some other place. I would have to do some research and have GL research it for me.
Maybe we need GL to give us a ruling on that.
I don't have a ruling, but I don't think the mayor would do that. I can't speak for him. But it is possible to transfer funds within the same department.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I am here and I can hear you. If you cut the allowance to 350, that's 350.
Okay, every little bit helps. And I'm not sure if we even need to move it to the Boys and Girls Club now that I think, Kat, you restored their funds already. Is that correct, Brenda?
Sorry to step on your toes on that. I saw it up on the spreadsheet earlier and just got excited. So
I think it just affects the bottom line. It doesn't really matter if it comes from one place or another, but each cut affects the bottom line.
Right. That's why I said every little bit helps. So anyway, okay, now we are at City Council office. And Brad, I think those were your questions.
Yeah, I got the question answered about DC. Thank you. And the council mills, Jan, I didn't ever know, are we counseling those all together, or are we doing some, or what? What are we doing on those? That was one of my questions, and you might have answered it already.
I lowered that budget by half, Brett, so
Okay.
that if we come back to physical meetings, we could plan meals again. Although if it's your budget, it's whatever you desire. If you want to cut more, we can certainly do so.
Well, what is that? I mean, this is up to for discussion. What would others feel if we decided to cut that for the whole time to help out there? What's your thoughts on that?
You know, I enjoy those meals, and I enjoy sitting around and getting to know the department heads and whoever comes in. But I think the one that we really need to fund is the Christmas one, where we have lunch for the employees. Other than that, this is a year to cut. So I'm not against cutting the rest of them, but keeping enough money to make sure we do that Christmas one if we're able to by then.
So what would the
And
difference?
I think I remembered. I was
I'm
just gonna say, I thought I remembered Jan had said she could find another 1,500 as far as the food went. I don't know how much of that would include the Christmas meal.
I think the reason that we even started that was because we expected department heads to stay over and they didn't have time to get dinner. So we were just trying to make it more comfortable for them. Plus it was a good time for us to interact where we hardly ever got to do that otherwise. So it was both, for the council to get to know the department heads and also for the department heads to get some food while they're having to wait on us all the time. So.
I get that.
Diane, I can give you some specific numbers if you want me to on that.
What do you want, council? Do you want specific numbers? Do you think it's going to make a difference? Is it that important? So give me some feedback on that.
I have a few comments on this. I do think it gives us an opportunity to help our staff, our council staff, in maybe even potlucking for this, for one, in this hard time in cutting. I think we need, I see your face, Jen. Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Sorry,
okay.
I just couldn't hear you, Rosalba. I need to have everybody's mics off.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I think it gives us a great opportunity to help our council staff with potlucking, definitely. And maybe that's more me to save the money there, but it does. But right now we don't know when we'll be able to gather in full force again. I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing food right now, but that's just me. So I think it's a great opportunity to cut it for now. And if we have to, we can look at it and shift it. But I think we're fine where it's at. That's where I'm at with that. I feel comfortable with that.
would you want me to leave an amount in for Christmas? We probably need 1,200 for Christmas.
I think so. And if we don't use it, then we can shift it around. But who knows if we'll be able to celebrate together that way as well. But let's see.
So, Brenda, for your numbers, you can take out another 2,100.
Okay. Is that it for the city council, Brett?
Yeah, there's one more thing. This is going to be an ouch. Would we be willing as a council to drop $100 off our car allowance to help?
I would say no.
Okay.
I'm indifferent either way.
Yeah, I would agree because we looked at the work meeting when we talked about whether the council was going to give ourselves a raise. And I suggested we move our allowances into our salary to be more unified in the transparency, and there wasn't interest in that. And when we compared what our allowances were with the salary and other cities. It's comparable only with those extra things. So I would not.
Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I'm good with where it is now. We've made the cuts with the food and everything else. I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, Brett,
Yes, thank you.
any other comments on that? All right.
I just wanted to thank Jan. Before these extra cuts, she'd gotten ours down 22.7% already. So just thank you for your work.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Let's go with G, enterprise funds, travel and training, and 4% expense decreases. Who's going to take that one? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that one is.
Well,
Oh,
I
that-
think,
Oh, no.
go ahead, Brett, if you want.
I can explain too, if you want me to.
Yeah. Would you please?
I think that when you were looking at the budget overall, we were very concerned, or you were expressed concern about whether or not fees would be coming in the way you expect through the coronavirus. And so we asked them to go through the exercise of cuts as well. But it looks like how Brenda has increased the bad debts, that she may have covered any problems that they may encounter. And I think the discussion was to decide whether or not you want to hold them harmless on those cuts that they had proposed on Monday and Tuesday.
That's right. I think we were trying to decide about holding them harmless. So what is the council's opinion about that? On the enterprise funds, travel, and
Yeah, I think the enterprise funds we hold harmless, because in those funds, that money would just go back in their budget anyway. It wouldn't do the general fund any good.
right. And also the library,
I agree.
same thing.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Citywide sick leave payout. I think we had a question about whether we wanted to eliminate that, if we're okay with leaving it the way it is. So I would like to hear some comment about that. I'm not sure what the difference would be, how much that would give us if we were to eliminate that.
I think we wanted to find out first if we were bound with retirement with that or not. I thought we were gonna,
I don't think so.
for sick leave.
Yes.
Okay.
Asked Robin about it, and after looking at the numbers, am not in favor of doing it. I just wanted to ask her about it, and she gave some.
Sorry, you cut out Kat there at the end.
Yeah, I was gonna say you cut out.
Sorry, I had just brought it up, asking Robin in comparing the sick pay leave payout with the amounts for the STEP plan, but I'm not in favor of pausing or suspending those now. So if anyone else wants to talk about it, but I was the one who put it on the list.
I support that.
agree with that. I think we're just, even if we did do that, we'd just be kicking the can down the road because we still have the obligation.
Okay, I agree. I don't think we should eliminate that as well. So
I agree
okay,
as well. I think the one thing, and I think we've all kind of discussed this already, but we find ourselves in a pickle next year's budget. Maybe something that we do have to look at, or look at other areas deeply as well. So maybe just being aware of that.
I would agree with that. And I think the employees would probably agree with that too. If things continue as they are, that they may understand a little more if it gets cut next year, because now we have years worth of data to show us that things really are bad. Right now, we have a month and a half. The threat level, or the governor is opening the state how I had hoped he would do it in May. When I was planning my whole how much are we going to lose thing, I thought in May things would start opening back up, and that's what they're doing. So hopefully, if everybody stays away from each other, even when they're not at home, we can just keep it kind of rolling, and we can look at this more in depth and do some more studies on ways to save other ways to save money first, and then get the employees last next year. So we'll be working on this all year. So I think it's just a little premature to mess with the employees' salaries right now. That's why our reserves are at 25% and not 12. So we can bolster it this 1 year and just hold the employees harmless, and then see what happens. And if it gets really bad next year, I think everybody will understand a little more than if you do it now. And we have some good morale out there. Everybody's staying. Everybody's working hard. They're coming to work, even though sometimes they're a little nervous about it. And I think it would be I think it's the risk versus the reward on that one is pretty high. What the effect is pretty high for the $200,000 or the $300,000 you would save, even in the STEP plan. I kind of skipped down to the STEP plan because they're all interrelated. So I think,
Where are we?
yeah, I stepped down. Once you talk about sick and employees, you're talking about anything in the employee plan. So, but.
Okay. All right, let's, before we get to the STEP plan, let's look at the general fund revenue transfers in for the power department. Okay, let's see. Jan, thank heavens for Jan Lopez, our council director, did some research to compare a few cities that are similar to Murray City Power. And currently Murray transfers 8% in 4 of 6 enterprise funds, and changes could mean ordinance updates if we decided to do that. Bountiful, for fiscal year 2021, they have a power department, and we sometimes, compare ourselves with them because there's a lot of similar things with their city. They do 10% transfers from power, and at this point we do 8%. Let's see, in Provo, they also have power. They do, in 2021, they did 11% transfers from all of their enterprise funds. And again, we do 8%. In Logan, they did 2021 transfers of 11% from all their enterprise funds. So when we're looking at enterprise funds transfers, if we added 1% from the power and just did that, it would be an extra 1% to 9%, and it would be $374,030.
Diane, oh, sorry.
1,030, right. So anyway, that's just a little information that Jan provided to consider the general fund transfers. Yes, Brett.
Tell me again that amount, that 340.
374.
374 that we would get extra off of 1%.
1%.
Okay. And that would put us at 9. And I know I've seen those numbers that you read, but 11, that would put us at 9%. And there's other cities you said that are 11, 10, and I
Right.
can't remember the other ones. So
Yeah. And we're at the lowest. And then that would mean that we wouldn't have to worry about messing with the step plan increases. So that's an option.
I have a history on this for council members who haven't been around. A few years ago, they tried to eliminate the Utah Taxpayers Association, and some of the state legislatures tried to eliminate the transfers. What we ended up with, thanks to the league and some good lobbying, is added disclosure notices. You got one in your power bill last time you got a utility bill from Murray City, and some various other disclosures. My biggest fear is if we start messing with this because we're having a bad year, so we change the percentages around, it's going to put it back on people's radar, and they're going to look at trying to eliminate it again. If the transfers get eliminated, that means we need a property tax increase of 42% to make up for that revenue that the transfers are giving us. So my fear is for $300,000 and a little tick in your estimated reserve balance, we're messing with something that is very tenuous with the state legislature and the Utah Taxpayers Association. Yes, we don't transfer as much as those other 3 power companies do. I also believe their power companies are bigger than ours. Provo is a big city compared to us. Bountiful, it might be the same. We like having our low power rates. And if you start taking too much from them, they're going to need to worry about their power rates. And 6 months ago, we were worried about what level of reserves should they have. And we established that the reserves are about right where they need to be. So do we want to pull more money from them? They're operating great as it is now. So those are my concerns with doing this. I would actually be more comfortable with just changing the percentage that's going into CIP by $300,000 to cover the step plan than messing with something that could start somebody being interested in our transfers again. It's a lot less risk versus reward change in there. And if we do it, we probably should think about it. And if we're going to think about it for a year and do it on next year's budget. Don't do it as a quick reaction, because then they'll say, oh, they just use these transfers to balance their budget when they can't figure out how to do it. And I heard that as they were talking when they were having these issues, because we were very afraid that they were going to eliminate the ability to do the transfers. So that would be my fear. GL can speak to it on changing the ordinances and doing more than what the ordinance says or less or whatever. But that's my fear of what could happen if we do this.
Okay. GL, are you still there? Would you like to talk to the transfers?
You have a specific question?
My
Brenda?
question, I have a question. Do we have to change the code, the ordinance, to be able to move from 9% to 10?
It's a good question. I think it's really kind of a 2-part question. One was legally, do you need to, and practically, should you? You already have a notice that has gone out that Brenda referred to in the utility billing that has a certain amount. To change that now could be very confusing to your taxpayers, particularly if you increase it. So that's probably the biggest hurdle right there. But do you have to? The state law regarding these types of transfers is all about transparency. And the reason this transparency came around in the first place was, as Brenda's alluded to, there are organizations out there that believe that cities should be more transparent in terms of the cost of government. And before there was this requirement of notifying ratepayers, these transfers were being made, and the ratepayers or the citizens didn't necessarily know this was going on. And so we were able to, or cities were able to transfer these funds into the general fund without a public hearing. What this does now is this shines a light on that to let citizens know that we're using these enterprise funds, which are primarily intended for the enterprise, actually exclusively intended for that, and supposed to be running like a self-contained business. The legislature did not shut that down and say you couldn't do it. So you can still do it, but it just has to go through this lengthy process of notifying people. I think as you're looking at your budget now, the way I view this is a lot like the tentative budget itself, where you have sent out to ratepayers what you intend to do. You're not bound to do that. You could pull back and not do it at all. I think you technically could increase it without an ordinance change, but I don't think that's a wise thing to do, because as I said before, every ratepayer that got that, every customer that got that notice is expecting that amount and not more. So that would be the challenge I would think that you would have going forward if you change it without changing the ordinance.
So let me ask, so for this year, we've already sent the notice out, right, Brenda? That was sent out in April. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, it has to go out at
Diane,
least,
can I comment on that too?
the notice has to go out at least 10 days before the hearing, and because of how our billing cycles, it goes out mostly in April, first part of May. And then there is a notice after that says this is what we actually did, because they do understand that some of the percentages could change as you're changing the budgets of, so they do understand it could change. So you were noticed as to what did happen later. I have to send that one out. Usually it's out in the July statements once you've passed the final budget, maybe the August. So
Jan, did you have a comment?
Brenda stated that. I just wanted to make it clear that the first notice that goes out is based on the mayor's tentative budget. And once you have a chance to consider the budget, if you make any changes, then the second notice actually covers what was the final decision on that.
So we have to send out a second notice anyway?
A second notice goes out anyway.
That's what actually was transferred.
Okay. Okay, and we would have to have a public hearing, correct?
Diane, a public hearing is required either way. Whether you increase it or not, there will be a public hearing on the transfers.
So let me ask another question. So we usually do it around the budget, the transfer, because then we can host the same public hearing together, right? But if, let's say in 6 months from now, we decided to transfer, then we could do another public hearing. That's what I'm understanding. Just Brenda, you don't prefer to do that because it can spark up a whole other conversation with the legislature.
yeah, I don't want the Utah Taxpayers Association saying, oh, they play around with this whenever they need money. I like the fact that it sits there, it's 8%. And you have to realize you are taking money from ratepayers, which are the same people that you're balancing the budget for. I mean, it's this fee versus this tax. So they're, you know.
Well, let me understand. We're not increasing their fees.
No, you're just taking more money out of those funds that they can then not use out of the power fund, that you're taking money out of the power fund. That's basically what you're doing. It's unlikely that it won't affect him a ton, but it will affect his reserves in the long run because you just pulled $350,000 or whatever that amount was, 374, out of his revenue and gave it to the general fund. So there is effect there, but my biggest fear is just messing with it without a long, deliberate process behind it.
But we are in unprecedented times, and I think whatever tools that we've got, we need to consider.
Yes, and we should consider it in next year's budget. Definitely consider it for next year. And maybe do all three, do just one. I don't know, but I think that, again, I think it's a little premature to pull on that card at this point.
I have a follow-up question. Oh, Diane, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, but how do we know that? We don't know that at this point. That's the problem. And I think we need to do whatever we can at this point, because we'd have to start the process all over again. I mean, I think we should consider it as one of the tools available to us. So go ahead, Rosalba. I'm sorry.
How much, after our last conversation, Brenda, how much total again did you say that we would be fine in to keep the step plan? If we were not to do the transfer, would we be okay without the transfer? I can't hear you, Brenda. Sorry.
Okay. Screen two is shared. Okay. So let me go back to here. That 2160 is the mayor's little bit that I calculated for the savings from reducing the car allowance. And then Jan's adjustment is up in the adjustments. I already fixed that. So right now, as we sit, where are we? Got to make sure I get the right one. We are at an 18% percent of revenue fund balance. That is including funding all of the step plan and not changing the transfer. I didn't even calculate anything because I had no idea what anybody was thinking. But we could just take that 18% and I would be more comfortable messing with the transfer to the capital projects in order to, if you want that to be 20, or hopefully our property tax will come in higher. If it comes in at 100,000 instead of 92, you got a little tick there. I don't know, but so what was your question? What number would you like me to put in there? Because
if we took the 300 and the 1% from the reserves and put it in, but without it, we're at 18%. So where would we be at if we put it in?
Oh, if we got power to transfer, oh, 18.9, you're talking at a 0.9% tick.
Can I ask you a question, Brenda?
Oh, go ahead.
When you talk about the difference between the 1% transfer from the power fund and the power, they're an enterprise fund, so they were held harmless when we did the 4% cuts from other departments. When we look at reducing the percentage transferred into the CIP fund, is that then impacting departments that were not held harmless, that did have to cut their budgets? Is there an impact there on more departments?
Yeah, it impacts their future possibilities of getting equipment. That's the impact on that one. So yeah, the CIP thing, that's what it is. But I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a not necessary at all, but that's just me, because I'm pretty comfortable with having an 18.8%, which is what it is. I actually had to put that up in revenue to get the right percentage it would be, because this is your fund balance as a percentage of revenue. So if we're going to increase the revenue, we need to do it that way. I'm perfectly comfortable with an 18.8% fund balance. a bunch of cities out there would die to have an 18.8% fund balance. So I know people are so afraid of what's going to happen next year, but next year we have all kinds of tools we can use, and we can think about and plan and start working on. And if we spend it, I mean, if you budget for it this year, that does not mean that the department heads are going to go spend it all. They're going to do the same thing they did this year, and you're going to have extra sitting out there. I don't think it's worth the risk for $374,000 to start messing with that transfer. Now, if you want to do it as a tool next year and have some meetings about it and talk about it and decide the reasons and do some studies on how it would affect power so that you have a good data behind it and a lot of backup so that when the Utah Taxpayers Association comes calling and starts asking for stuff, it's not, well, I'm afraid that our reserves at 20%, and they're gonna think that that's a reasonable amount, 18 or 20. I think the reserves are too high, so they're gonna look into it. And I would just like to do that more deliberately and wait and do it next year. Whether you budget for an 18.8 or a 20% reserve balance, it's going to come out different. I mean, it just is. And hopefully it's going to come out better than whatever we're budgeting for. So, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to take that chance and mess with it, we can do that. If you want to just mess or change the capital projects transfer so your budget appears that when we get to actually doing it, I can move, when it's in the budget, I can move up to the budget amount, but I can also move less than the budget amount. I'm not required to move the budget amount because it's an expense on the capital, on the general fund. So for an expense, as long as I don't go over budget, I'm fine. I can be under budget. So we can work on how much we actually physically transfer, even though we have budgeted a little less than what we would think. It can be done, and we can adjust next year. If it looks like we're doing well and we're going to have the money to transfer, that's what budget openings are for.
Okay, Brenda. You know, you said it was a risk. I don't really see it as a risk. I see it as a tool. I see it as something available if we need to use it. And I don't think we should be afraid to use it. But I would like to hear from the council what your opinions, what your thoughts are on this topic, on transfers, especially from the power department. For the 1%, which would be 9%, because we currently have 8%. So anyway, I would like to hear council opinion.
Can we take that down so we see everyone's faces? I want to see you.
Yes, yes. If I can figure out how to do it.
If I might, I'll talk first on this. Brenda's analysis of the tax commission or the Taxpayers Association is spot on. I've been there, I've watched them, and they did take a run at these a couple of years ago. I think we're playing with fire for that amount of money if we can find it someplace else. But also, I got a question for Brenda. A minute ago, you said our reserves, maybe I misunderstood. You said our reserves are 25. And I think that's what they would be if that's the amount the state, or the maximum amount we could have. Our reserves aren't at 25 now. And with the budget we were presented, last year, I think we used about 25% of the reserves. This year, we would have used about 40% of the reserves if we hadn't gone into the weeds and spent this extra $2+ million. Is that correct?
Okay, my worst case scenario for the budget, I rolled it up. It's on your first page of that sheet I sent you. Was we were going to finish the year at 20.2%.
Hold on. There's a lot of feedback and I can barely
It's
hear
not
you.
mine. Okay, everybody's muted. All right. So the budget I presented with the mayors was that we would finish this year at 20.2% or $8.5 million. With the reanalysis of the savings, and it's our best estimate based on what's going on, we would finish the year at 24% or $10.4 million. And then as we've made all these changes, as we sit right now, if I have the changes correct, we would be at, we're still starting the year at 10.4, but we would finish the year at 18.8%, which is $7.8 million. Plus whatever is, $7.8 million.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reiterate that we are, as far as the legislature is concerned, we're playing with fire with these enterprise funds because that's just the way they think and that's the way it is. And I've seen it before and I'm sure we could spark that again. So we need to be careful there. The other thing, there's half a dozen things. But the other thing is, I think I had on the back of my mind to go back to that $100,000 for Danny, and we were going to do the streets. The only thing I want to have that's in the back of my mind is if there's one lawsuit because we don't have that plan or that stuff in place, that would wipe out our savings there. That just makes me nervous, but. I think by going into the weeds, we've found hopefully the money we will have with the department heads finding that extra 4%. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate that and how much we appreciate Kat and Diane getting into the weeds. Next year, we may not find that $2 million because they've already cut their budget. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. So projections are down 17% for sales tax. I saw the legislatures starting to budget for over $1 billion less. So we just need to be aware of that as we go forward. But I don't know that this enterprise fund is something we want to mess with right now because it could backfire, in my opinion.
Other council? Any comments or opinions about using the enterprise fund?
I feel comfortable with changing it by 1%, even after having GL speak. I would like to kind of maybe look at it a little bit more with the league and kind of understand the history. But I do appreciate Dale's expertise because I think out of all of us, he spent the most time up on the Hill. And I do trust that. But I think I still would like to kind of get into the weeds of it a little bit more. That's how I feel about it. But I do agree, Diane, it is a tool and there's an opportunity there to use it.
Depending on what happens at mid-year, maybe we should reconsider it again unless there are more people that are interested in doing it right now.
That's what I would agree to do, Diane.
So is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see it as a tool, but I don't have the legislative history of watching that specific battle at the Capitol. And I do understand how crushing that would be if we lost the transfer completely. But I would definitely like to look at it in the next 6 months as a possibility, especially just as that enterprise fund was held harmless. And I feel confident after looking at their budget that that they could do it. But I also don't want to put us in jeopardy of red flagging it in the legislature.
Yeah, I'm not real sure about that. So maybe we should do some more research on that. So Brenda, would that make sense to you?
That actually makes perfect sense. That was my goal, was to get you to look at it through the course of the year. So you came to the same conclusion I would have liked. So.
Okay. And we're gonna watch this every month, and I know you are, and you'll keep us up on what's going on. So the bottom line is we would end with 18.8%.
Yes. Well, it's going to adjust some, but it'll be around 18 unless I find it's huge. That because every time I look through this and analyze more, I may find an error here or there, but I will let you know if I do. But it should come out right around 18, I would hope.
Okay, because
That is
getting below
Another
that.
question when you have time.
Yeah, getting below that makes me very uncomfortable. Jan, what is your question?
I just wanted to confirm, did you have that 500,000 still in there from the 0.2 sales tax, or you took that out, Brenda?
the 500,000. No, oh, no, it's not in there right now.
Okay, so she took the 500,000 from 0.2 sales tax out of your numbers.
So it's not transferring right now.
Okay, thank you.
When does that transfer in, Brenda?
When does it happen?
Yes.
We don't do it until year end. We don't do it on a monthly basis. We do it at year end. After we know what all the sales tax that we've collected is, then we figure out what we'll figure out both, especially this year, what the transportation tax was, move that over to capital projects. We figure out what the 0.2 is, subtract the payment. And for this year's budget, 2020, we will move that over. And then for 2021, we'll move that over. But we're tracking it. You know, I have a number of what the 0.2 sales tax was. And I think I give that to you every month. And if I don't, I can. It's actually combined in all of the sales tax reports I do with the regular sales tax.
Okay, did that answer your question? Okay.
So I have one question. As I redo this budget book, I wasn't planning on messing with my estimated actual, but I can. So column, which is where my budget book is feeding off of right now. Would you like me to kind of, I don't know how I would do it, but I can kind of make that adjustment, or
is that what would?
Well, no, well, it will help because we've been basing what we're looking at based on, never mind, I'll do it. It will be better if I adjust those numbers
Okay.
and let it flow.
Okay.
I answered my own question by kind of talking to you.
Oh, good. That's always helpful. Okay. So city council decisions. Are we comfortable with 18.8? And is there anything else that the council would like to say? I'm going to poll each of you and ask you for comments, and let me know if there is, you know, if you're comfortable with the decisions made at this point. So, Brett.
Yes. Did we do this? We've already gone over the step plan that we're doing that?
Yes, we are. We're keeping,
Thanks. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Diane, for letting me do that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just want to thank you. I mean, this is out of this is my, I think my 9th budget, and you've worn me out. So you did a really good job. This is, and I mean that as a compliment. We have really done some, what did someone say? I can't remember what there was a term someone used, and it was exactly the exercise. And I've done more this time than I think I've ever done. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I want to make sure that, and thanks for letting me throw that out about our car allowance. And I really respect what Kat said, and I know Rosalba felt that same way, and I respect that. So thank you. And we had talked about the benefits and salaries before, and I want to make sure Kat knew that I had agreed with that too. So thank you. Also, let's see, I wrote some things down. Hold on. If I can, you know me, I'll be kind how I say this, but I'm going to be frank. In the future, I think there needs to be a lot more communication on both sides. I think that is huge. That's not just the council's fault. That's not just administration's fault. I think that is huge. And I have seen less communication this year than I've ever seen. And I'm just telling you, I think it's a tough thing for us to do, to make some of these decisions and not have other people to be able to talk to. Anyway, I just think it's huge. And hopefully that is not a surprise to anybody that I feel that way, because I would hope that most of us feel that way, because communication is huge. And I just hope that it can get better. So thank you. I appreciate the council for everything they've done, and especially Diane and Kat and Jan Lopez, and also the mayor and his team. I do. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
thanks, Brett. Kat.
Thanks for saying all that, Brett. And yeah, I feel like we made a lot of progress on savings, and I know that having everything on the table is uncomfortable and scary. And so I just want to thank our department heads for all the work they did. And I hope that they know that, I mean, I read through the entire budget multiple times, and every time I saw that the senior rec center wasn't getting the ice machine they need, and that, the police are getting one fewer new car. I mean, I hope that they know that we grieve every line item as much as they do. And it's real. It's not just numbers. And so I hope that they know that. But that the idea of having to lay off even one employee in 3 years, if this doesn't bounce back the way it hopes, keeps me up at night. So I just hope that employees know, that department heads know how incredibly serious we take this. And that it can feel, I think the term you were thinking of, Brett, was in the weeds, of that we're getting in there and just nitpicking through. But I think it's important. And if things get better, then it's a muscle we used and practiced, and we can, then go back to all the spending. But if it doesn't, then it's a muscle we're going to have to keep working on, and we're going to have to keep getting better at to get through these possibly rough couple of years. I've had residents, I had a conversation on my front stoop with an employee and resident in my pajamas the other day, who wanted to thank the mayor for initially putting the step plan in, and who also thanked us for not looking at increasing taxes. But I've gotten so many calls, and I also have people say, but we know that you don't want to lose any of us. So thank you for that, and really understanding us looking at every single item. So thank you for taking the time for it, and for trusting also that every cut is because we care and we're concerned, and trying to make.
Okay, you cut out, Kat. I'm guessing you were done.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I couldn't hear you. All right, Dale, if you'd like to make some comments.
Well, first, I think the comment that Brett was trying to come up with was one I used. This probably shouldn't be used over the internet. But I'm glad I'm not the last one to talk, simply because everything's being said. I think we've gone a lot further than we thought we would. We found money. It wasn't easy, and I apologize to employees that were worried about it, because like Kat said, and Brett both, we spent day and night trying to find the money to fund this, the mayor's budget that he gave to us. And we've found it for this year, and we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can, because this year, next year, 10 years from now, we never want to lose an employee. We want to make sure that we're fiscally solvent, and we can do what we need to do. I remember the first year I was on the council, we had the first budget I did had a tax increase, and there was communication going back and forth continually over that to make sure everything was right with the mayor and everything was right with the council, so we could go forward with that budget. And that's where the STEP program came from. And I agree wholeheartedly with Brett. We need better communication between the two bodies, and I hope that we get that. We can work together, and the next budget starts tomorrow, because I'm nervous about where the funds will come from. We can't raise taxes. We wouldn't do that in this situation, but we need to generate funds to maintain the services. And when the water goes out, the water company has to go fix it. When the power goes out, power company has to go fix it, and that takes men, women, talent, and machinery, and it all costs money. So we just have to pinch every dime we can. With that, thank you. Well, actually, I'm not through yet. I want to thank the hard work of everybody in the city, the department heads, Jan, Diane, Kat, the mayor's office, everybody that and you too, Brenda, especially you.
Yeah, Brenda. I didn't say that either.
Magic numbers, But we found the money for this year. Tomorrow, let's start looking for the money for next year.
All right. Thanks, Dale. And Rosalba, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, thank you, Diane. First off, thank you to all the department heads. I was really impressed and love all the different ways that you guys are trying to make your departments better and make it a better place for your staff. And, being raised here, I know the camaraderie between the staff and just the history behind it. So it is hard. This position, this time, and being a council member is probably the hardest time for all of us. And I would be remiss to say that it hasn't been a hard week for me personally, and I'm sure for all of us as well. But I'm happy and I feel comfortable with the budget. I definitely would love to continue to hear from residents. I think that's important in this process, and to have transparency with our residents. I know that was a big thing that kept coming up, was how we are spending money, how we are looking at money, and raising taxes is not a question at this point. And I would hate for residents to feel even more agitated about their own finances and where they live. I think that itself should be something that we should support and continue to support. So again, I do feel comfortable where we're at, and I do appreciate Brenda and all your hard work and your knowledge throughout this process. I know it's not easy. It's not easy to have the council and the mayor in your ear, but I definitely appreciate everything that you did for both of us. And I don't know what the communication was prior to this, but it feels kind of off. In my perspective, I've worked in various areas where it was kind of be told, but don't say anything kind of environment. And it didn't make me feel comfortable. So I really hope that we can find something, a better way to communicate, because it's not one side or the other. We're in this together. And I want the staff to know that we are here to support them and we want to keep them on board as much as possible. We don't know what the future is going to hold, and hopefully in the future, you know, we don't have to make deeper cuts, but it's also a possibility, and we need to look at that and be aware that that could be something that we have to do. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Diane and Kat, for putting this together, and Jan. I know it was really hard for you two to kind of get in the weeds of it all as well, and I really do appreciate that, because it's been a hard week for me, so I can't even imagine what it's been like for you two for the last couple of weeks. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the learning process in all of this. I'm learning as well, and I hope it's not naive. I'm not being naive, but definitely I have a lot of questions, and you know, I really just want to be able to answer those questions for constituents and citizens and neighbors of Murray as well. So thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, Rosalba. So I get to be the last, and you know, I don't know that there's much left to say other than to echo your comments. You're wonderful council members. Jan, you're amazing. I don't know what I would have done without you. I so appreciate your support. And Kat, you've been a great vice chair. So anyway, I'm looking forward to completing this process. We'll have a public hearing and we'll approve it in the council meeting. And so with that, and I also look forward to spending a lot of time with Brenda, and thanks for your help. We're adjourned. Thank you.